mentioned Anthony Richardson was benched for Joe Flacco yesterday. Here's Shane Steichen's explanation today.
Joe will be our quarterback going forward. Tough decision, but one I felt was in the best interest of our football team. I feel that Joe gives us the best chance to win right now. With that being said, not giving up on Anthony by any means, really not. He's a young player with a ton of talent. Use this time to continue to develop and grow as a professional.
As a competitor, definitely don't want to be told that, you're not the guy anymore, for the upcoming week. But, it's all good. I'm using this moment as an opportunity to grow and just learn from my mistakes.
Would you do anything differently with the tap-out play or say anything differently about it?
Regarding that play, I know I can't do that as a leader, especially as a quarterback of this team, and especially just as a football player in general. I can't necessarily just bring myself out of the game like that, especially in key moments like that. But, you live and you learn. You just got to, grow from it.
Anthony, how did you role in the decision?
I'm not necessarily sure. They just let me know the information. I just took it and ran with it.
Anthony, what do you think the future might hold? It complicates your future, right? When you're not the starter, what do you think the future holds?
Not necessarily. I'm gonna still, prepare as if I am the starter. I feel like there is an opportunity for me to step back on the field, and when it does, present itself, I'm gonna take advantage of it.
Really interesting. You sort of see a peek into how Anthony Richardson speaks and who he is. Adam, what can you add on the decision-making process for the Colts here?
Well, they said it did not have to do entirely with him tapping out, but it's hard to imagine that didn't play into this decision when you had veteran leaders on that team like the center Ryan Kelly come out and say that that's not the standard to which that organization operates. Clearly it had to, and I just wonder if he hadn't had this play where he did tap out and then say he was tired after, would he still be the starting quarterback? I know the completion percentage is at 44.4%. It's at a historical low. There's been no quarterback that has completed fewer passes than Anthony Richardson. He's struggling. The game is fast for him. There's still a lot of growth for him to go through. But the fact of the matter is that became something of a tipping point to where there had to be people in the Colts organization who said we can't have this right now, especially when we have somebody like Joe Flacco, who's a pro at playing the position and can help us win games right now. They make the decision to go to Flacco, and now Richardson's future in Indy is up in the air.
I think that's the thing that hits right now, Schefter, is his future is very much so up in the air. Over the last 24 hours and hearing all the comments and then hearing Shane Steichen, their head coach, share what he shared today, my thought is this is much more about being the quarterback than playing quarterback. This is much more about the intangibles, more so than a 44% completion percentage. This is about the style of leader you are, the character that you have, the day-to-day work ethic that you're displaying in your building. This isn't about, the roller coaster performance or the availability, unavailable with some of the injuries. This seems so much more about, is Anthony Richardson really understanding what it means to be the billion-dollar CEO? This isn't about 44%. Shane Steichen's a good football coach. He could watch the football tape and see the same stuff that some of us have seen over this past weekend. This feels, after hearing him, that this is way more about this young man isn't understanding the weight of what it is to be the CEO of that company. And until that changes, he doesn't get that opportunity to lead that football team anymore.
Do you think it changes?
It has to. It has to. This is very clear right now. Shane Steichen is putting his career, at least in Indy, at a line of demarcation. He is either going to take this in stride and learn from it and get better from it. I've played with guys that were Matthew Stafford, who you would literally had to drag him off the field, or was the absolute stone-cold leader. I was around Peyton Manning, that was the CEO. Everything ran through him. And so for Anthony, it has to change, or he's not going to make it in the league. And I love his talent.
Dan, here's the one thing I would say to that, though. How many times have we seen a team bench a young quarterback and have that young quarterback bounce back and become the rousing success that they expected him to be when they picked him?
I can't think
Has
of
that
one.
happened? When's the last time that happened?
Yeah.
When's the last time we saw a team bench a first-round draft pick and have that guy bounce. We can go through the list of players. I'm sure I'm missing some.
Sure.
But the majority, at the very least, don't come back and amount to the quarterback that the organization thought he would be when they invested a first-round draft pick in him.
Hawk, you've been around so many great leaders and maybe some that weren't that way in your time in the league. How do you make sense of all this?
Look, when you're in the NFL, you're okay with developing the quarterback. You understand, even though I'm a receiver, somebody else's development is not my issue. But when it gets in the way of my job, that becomes a problem. And for the Indianapolis Colts, it feels like, and to your point about the comments from his teammates in the locker room, that there was a lack of commitment from Anthony Richardson into his own development. There's 52 other guys in that locker room, in that huddle, that are okay with you developing if you are giving that development everything you have. The moment you feel like that you are not committed to your own development, then you start to lose the players in your locker room. And that's when you have to make decisions like this. I've been in the locker room with Johnny Manziel, who I love to death. I loved him as a player. I loved him as a person. But even he has been on record to say he was not prepared to lead an NFL team. And you have guys who are in year 7, 8, 9, 10. You have Hall of Famers in that huddle that are committing everything they have to your development for the hope that we can turn something around. But the moment we felt like he was not giving it his all, he wasn't committed, he didn't opt in to his development, that's when it became an issue in the locker room. And that's what the Indianapolis Colts have been trying to prevent.
Yeah, there's really two ways to look at this. The Colts, they knew what they were getting into when they drafted Anthony. They knew he was a project. They knew he didn't play a lot of college football. To sit here and think that this benching is just because of how the play is on the field going is silly. They knew there were going to be bumps in the road. It's either that and they completely misrepresented what they thought he was going to be as a player, or that they're disappointed with how he's going about being a professional quarterback within their building on a day-to-day basis. It's one of those two.
Really fast, too, Dan. I mean, you showed the tape yesterday. The tape hasn't been maybe as bad. If we're talking purely about football ability, I know it's been inconsistent, but you still see a lot of potential there, right?
Yeah, there's still a ton of potential. The tape this past weekend wasn't as bad as the stat said.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the Miami game, we did a very similar tape when the question was, why aren't you developing in a way that you should be? And injuries, inconsistent play, there's a lot that's going into it.
If you're also wondering what the Colts may be seeing, according to ESPN Analytics, the Colts have a 64% chance to make the playoffs if Flacco starts the rest of the way. If it's Richardson, it drops to 46%. That's the difference, even just from the analytics. All right.